Good morning. I'm Pat Croce, and this is the American Cancer Society's HEALED Community Gathering. HEALED is an acronym for Health and Energy, Active Living Every Day. Health and energy through, that preposition is important, active living every day. No days off. That's right. We want you to be active. And that's our mission here at HEALED, is to get everyone off the couch, whether you're touched by cancer or has someone who has been touched by someone with cancer. We're going to get everyone moving. That's it. It's a movement in two ways. One, to get you moving, and two, to ripple out that movement to others. So not only do we affect body, but mind and spirit. Therefore, our intention is that you not suffer, to come into the present moment with your focus on yourself. Yes, this is not being selfish. This is being generous with you. It's you who we want healthy, mentally, physically, and spiritually. I like to start each gathering off with an attitude of gratitude and thank 6ABC for their sponsorship. They're our media partner, and they share this information over the next 60 minutes with everyone who comes to 6abc.com. So if you would like to go, spread the word. Come on, join the party. Two, I'd like to celebrate and thank all of our leadership partners. There's about 30 of you out there who put up some serious bucks to raise the $2 million to get this HEALED research undergoing in Atlanta as we speak. And three, everyone who's attending right now. That means you have the link, whether it's Facebook or YouTube, or you've gone to acshealed.com and made a donation and received in return our little HEALED bracelet with this one green bead. That green stands for healing, harmony, nature, and more importantly, we're all in this together. We're going to start our gathering with a moment of stillness. I'm going to ring this bell, and all I ask you to do is lovingly, gently, calmly place your attention on the sound of the bell. If you like to close your eyes, please do. Now, when all of your attention was placed on that sound, there was no worry, no angst, no anticipation, expectation, no comparison to the past. You were in the present moment, the now. And in the now, you can have no angst. You can have no problems. There may be challenges in life. When you're dealing with cancer, there's radiation, there's surgical procedures, but it has to be done now. You are concerned with the challenges of now, not problems. Problems always require time, which requires the mind. Takes you out of the now, and you start worrying and angsting. And your body needs enough of its energy for healing and harmony. It doesn't need it to worry about something that may never come up in the first place anyway. So our goal here at HEALED, our gathering, is to bring you all into this present moment together for the next 60 minutes. And once a month, this is I think our 7th month, our 27th HEALED gathering. And today, the first of every month for the past 4 months, we've had a special guest who I love. Her name is Dr. Jeanie Subach. She's a professor at Westchester University in the clinical nutrition department. She's at their lab as we speak, but I've known Jeanie as a sports nutritionist for the Philadelphia Flyers, for the Philadelphia 76ers, for my private businesses back in the day. So I have a very fond liking and, support for this next guest. And I listen with bated breath on everything she says, and I ask 1,000 different questions. And if I don't get your questions asked, please click on Facebook or YouTube, and Diana, who is our HEALED director, will bring your questions to the audience, to our specialist at the end of the show. Dr. Jeanie Subach, are you there?
I am here. Hey, Pat.
What's your shirt say today?
Okay, so we're talking about grains today, and it's rice is life.
So I should say, Jeanie, before you get started on grains, you have covered probiotics, prebiotics, fruits and veggies, protein and energy bars. I mean, each time Jeanie comes on, there's a specific theme, but that doesn't mean we can't go off the reservation and
Sure.
ask other questions about other food groups, about anything that, especially in grains. To me, this is really important to me because gluten has involved with grains, and I'm a very, very low gluten eater. So, Jeanie, why grains? Why are they important?
Because they're the staff of life. Think back of biblical. We talk about we were breaking bread, we were given bread. You can't live without bread alone. All these things go back to the beginning. Grains, because they're a complex carbohydrate, and we know that our body needs carbohydrates for energy. Think of this, Pat, your brain and your red blood cells only need glucose as an energy source, and glucose comes from the grains. So that's why grains are so important.
And what kind of grains do you recommend?
Well, we like whole grains, but let me just go back. The reason I asked to talk about grains today was because we had a viewer call me after our last segment, and I think he knows a lot of people, but Rocky, and he was asking all about grains. He said, I'm an Italian American. I like to eat my pasta. I like to eat grains, but I'm always told that I can't. Can you, clear up some fallacies? So that's why I decided that we're going to talk about grains today. So what I told our viewer was that carbohydrates are good. In sports nutrition, carbohydrate is king because it's the energy nutrient that provides energy, is stored as glycogen. But for most people, they eat too many grains of the wrong kind. So we have two different types of grains we're going to talk about. Whole grains, which is that king, and then the processed grains, which aren't so great because they're the ones that have added fat and sugar and a lot of additives and preservatives. And they are not so great for you because we eat too much of them, and then they can cause weight gain. They can contribute to other not so great medical issues such as hypertension, obesity, diabetes. So whole grains are the king.
So let's go back to Rocco's question to you. When he's going to have his Italian meal with pasta and meatballs and bread and butter on the side, what kind of grains are Rocco eating?
All right. So this is our conversation, and I'm just going to share our conversation that I had with him. He told me, he said, I'm a short guy. I like to eat, but I'm challenged with my weight sometimes, and many of us are. So I said to him, you have to understand, and I'm going to pull this out again. I pull this out every week, every month I pull this out, right? This is the My Plate. And the My Plate comes from the USDA dietary guidelines. It says that a quarter of our plate should be coming from grains, but half of those grains should be coming from whole grains. And why? When we talk about grains, we have the whole grain, which is the whole kernel. Nothing is taken apart. And if you look at the whole kernel, the outside of it is the bran. And the bran is where all the fiber is. And we know how important fiber is for digestive health. It's that prebiotic to the probiotic. It aids in our elimination. It makes us feel good. It stabilizes blood sugar. So just that one nutrient fiber does so many things. With the grain, the fiber is in that bran. Then if you look at the kernel of grain, the next part is the endosperm, which is where the starch is. Now that's good. Then we have the germ, which is in the middle. And the germ has all the B vitamins and minerals, and so vitamin E, okay? So it has all the good nutrients in that. But what happens when they process a grain, they take away the bran, they throw it in the trash. They take away the germ, they throw it in the trash. And all they have is the endosperm, which has the starch, but none of the vitamins or minerals. So what do? They enrich it. They put back what they took out, but they do not put the fiber back. So
Whoa, stop right there, Jeanie. Jeanie, that's really important. So the three layers of a grain, the manufacturers are taking away the inner and outermost layers. They're
Exactly.
They are re-injecting the inner layer of vitamins, minerals, but the outer layer of bran is left naked.
Exactly. They take that away, and you could buy all bran, which is the bran that they take away. But all you have left is that endosperm, which it's a starch, which is good, but it doesn't have the vitamins and minerals in it. So what they do is they enrich it. They put back what they took out. So I guess the question is, why go to that trouble? Why don't you just eat the whole grain? If you eat a product that is a whole grain that has the bran, the endosperm, and the germ, so you're getting all the nutrients that nature provided.
And
Okay.
so, like spaghetti, I want to go to Rocco's question because we have a lot of people out there who either have the diagnosis of cancer or who are caregivers for cancer patients. And you're giving us insights on the grains, but everyone loves spaghetti.
So this is our conversation. I said, Rock, I said, I don't know about you. I said, but if I make my mom's spaghetti sauce, I'm going to have white pasta on it because I don't really like whole wheat pasta. And he said, absolutely. I don't like the whole wheat pasta. So that's where you have to do the balance. So if you have Sunday gravy, you have the white pasta. And then if you're going to have it again on Wednesday, have the white pasta. But in the meantime, make sure that your breakfast is the whole grain and your snack is the whole grain. So we have whole grain Triscuits, another whole grain, or popcorn. So you just have to make sure that, it's like saving up for something. If you want to save up for something expensive, save up your processed carbs for that good Sunday dinner so you can have your all-American white pasta.
So is there a difference between 7-grain bread, multi-grain bread? I mean, there's a lot of grains out there.
Funny you should ask, Pat. So yes, when you're looking for bread, you want to look for 100% whole wheat bread, okay? Something like this. This is Sara Lee 100% whole wheat bread. And you will see it says has 8 grams of whole grain in it. One serving of a whole grain is 16 grams of whole grain. Now, this is a light bread, okay? So Rocco also...
Well, Jeanie, wait a second, Jeanie. I'm not quite sure that formula you just gave. What was that? 1 gram?
So 16 grams of whole grain is the equivalent to a serving of a whole grain. Okay, so you can see right here, it says 8 grams of whole grain per serving. Okay, so if I eat 2 pieces of these bread, 2 slices of this bread, I am getting 1 serving of a whole grain food. Okay, so
and how many do we need?
Well, it depends. If you remember the old food pyramid on that bottom, it said 6 to 11 servings of grains a day. It depends on your activity factor. It depends on your age. It depends on how active you are. So if you are running the Broad Street Run and you're doing distance run, yes, you can go up to that 11 or even more. But if you're sedentary, like many people are, or if you're getting older, like we are, we don't need as many grains because as we age, our energy expenditure goes down a little bit. And that's when we have to make the adjustments. And I know personally at 59, I can't eat as much as I did when I was in my 20s and 30s. So you have to adjust it. But so getting back to this is and it says 100% whole wheat. And this is a whole grain. But then you have something like this, and this says multigrain. Okay, so this says multigrain. What does multigrain mean? Multigrain means it just has a lot of different grains in it. So if you look at this package, it tells you that it has oats and barley and triticale and millet, many different grains. Multigrain bread is not necessarily a whole grain in the amounts that you want.
Bang, 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 ding, ding, ding. This is really important, Jeanie, right here, because we're under the impression that whole grain is as healthy, as important, as vital as multigrain, as whole grain. But you're saying, no, multigrain is almost like a camouflage.
Many times, Pat, it is a whole grain, but they kind of fool us. So, for an example, if you go into the grocery store, you'll see honey wheat bread. Okay, this is whole. I'm going to put that out. But you'll see honey wheat bread, and kids love it. Well, they love it because it's a white bread. but it just has, and white bread is wheat bread, but you need to look at that 100% whole wheat. That's the key that you're looking for. Okay.
So wheat bread. No, Jeanie, I just want to make sure, because this is important. You're using a lot of grains and wheat. Wheat bread is not whole wheat bread.
No, white bread comes from wheat.
Right. That's important to know, though, so that if someone says wheat bread, what they're saying is it could be white bread, but when they say wheat bread, it's not 100% whole wheat bread.
Exactly. And you want to look for that 100% whole wheat, and that's what you're going to get.
And how does this help our patients? How does this help everyone out there who's watching this that is on a treatment plan, is trying to get healed, health and energy, health and energy through active living every day? How would you recommend this 100% whole wheat grain added to their lifestyle?
The reason, Pat, is because it has the fiber in it. It has the vitamins and minerals. It has the antioxidants. And we throw that word out, antioxidants, a lot, don't we? But I don't think people understand it. And I'm going to give you a simple explanation. So going back to your question, whole wheat products have a lot of vitamins and minerals and antioxidants in it. I want you to picture that you take an apple and you cut that apple and you put it on the counter. And you come back a couple hours later. What happens to that apple?
It's brown.
It's brown. Why? Because oxidation is occurring. Okay. The surface is being altered. Well, if you take that same apple, Pat, and you put lemon juice on it or orange juice, vitamin C, antioxidant, you come back and that apple is not brown. So think of your body. Think of the cells in your body. If you coat your body, the cells of the body, with high antioxidant foods, fruits and vegetables and whole grain, you are protecting yourself just like that lemon juice protected the surface of that apple. Very simple. Good. It's a very simplistic explanation, but it makes sense, doesn't it?
Oh, that was good, Jeanie. I like that.
And that's why we want to eat our food rather than take the supplements. Okay?
So, Jeanie, I just want to turn just the corner, because I mentioned in the intro, relative to grains, gluten. Where is gluten in this grains formula?
Okay, so gluten comes from two proteins, gliadin and gliadin, that are found in wheat. And what happens is there are two proteins that when they're moistened and manipulated, mean they're put into a product, they form the gluten molecule. People that have celiac disease, people that have a gluten sensitivity, intolerance, they can't digest that gluten molecule, and it causes a lot of pain. Now, persons with celiac disease, that's an autoimmune disorder, and they have a flattening of the villi in their intestinal tract. They can get very ill. Other people that have a gluten sensitivity, they're not going to get as ill as the person with celiac, but they're not going to feel good. And we don't want anybody not feeling good. So they have to stay away from wheat, barley, and rye. Okay, that's what you need to stay away from. In many times, they can eat oats because oats are gluten-free, but they might have to buy oats that are labeled gluten-free, because if those oats are made in a factory that makes gluten products, we can have what they call cross contact, and it can be contaminated. Okay, so gluten-free things are like the quinoa is gluten-free, your rice is gluten-free, your millet is gluten-free. These are all whole grains that don't have that gluten in them.
That's good. So if you're wheat sensitive, I honestly, you know this, I'm on a FODMAP kind of diet where wheat is a no-no for me. Right. Not so much the gluten, but the wheat itself, that it causes fermentation, bloating, gas. And so I realized that has really had a negative effect on my sleeping habits. And so I have to be really careful with if I'm going to have any grains, not from wheat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the thing is, Pat, I think everybody, I would love people for maybe just a couple days, write down what you eat and look and see what you eat, because you might be eating better than you think, hopefully, or you might be able to evaluate it and say, maybe I can cut that out. So that's something that when you go to the registered dietitian, he or she will say to you, can you keep a food log? Because that gives us so much information on the diet and the habits. And many times it's just as simple as cutting out something small out of your diet. Okay. But I do want to talk to you, Pat, before we go, about this. So our oats. Oats are a great whole grain. And you know I have these every single morning for breakfast. But people have a lot of questions about oats. Okay. So this, Pat, the steel cut oats, okay? The steel cut Irish oats. So this is a good source of fiber, but it takes a long time to cook, all right? So people might say, I don't have time to make oatmeal, but I like this. You can cook this in the Instapot. You can cook it up in the beginning of the week and have it. When I do steel cut, I do it make them on Sunday, and then I make them again on Wednesday. But if you don't have time, you can use the old-fashioned oats, okay? And this, again, you can put in the microwave for 2 minutes, very, very quick. Or then you can do the quick oats. And this is just 1 minute in the microwave, all right? So these are things like that. Or you can pretend this is oatmeal. You can do an oatmeal that is instant. So what's the difference? They're all great. They all have the same amount of fiber in it. It's just the amount of what they've done, okay? The steel cut oat is the least processed. Then you have your rolled oat, a little bit more processed, but it's not taking the bad things out of it. The quick, processed a little bit more, but still not taking the bad things out of it. But then you have the instant, still good, but what they do is they add a little bit of sodium. So if you're trying to watch your sodium content, it's better to go with the big boys, okay? In a pinch, the packet is fine as long as you're not doing the ones with added sugar, all right? I did bring this, Pat, because this is cream of wheat. And I know growing up, probably 3 times a week, it was on our breakfast table before we went to school. My mom loved cream of wheat, but we bought the processed cream of wheat. And now they have the whole grain cream of wheat. So this is great, 5 grams of fiber. Why is this important for our cancer patients? Many times we have low iron levels, right? You might be told, you need to beef up your iron. Iron fortified cereals are great ways of getting iron in the diet of everybody. So if I had a female athlete, any patient, I would say do an iron fortified cereal. And cream of wheat, be it the whole grain or the regular, is very soothing. And we know with our cancer patients, we want to give them things that are soothing to them, things that they can keep down. If you ever have some intestinal distress, diarrhea, you can use the regular cream of wheat, and that will be a binding agent and help stop that discomfort. You don't want to do the whole grain cream of wheat when you have those issues, but a regular cream of wheat can be so important. And that's why we say, Pat, all foods can fit.
So, Jeanie, before I let you go, 2 questions. One, you pointed to 5 grams of fiber per serving. Mm-hmm. How many grams of fiber do you recommend the average female, male ingest a day?
So females, we need about 25 grams a day, and males need about 36 grams a day. And you are only going to get that if you eat at least 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, and then your whole grains.
In addition to the 5 fruits and vegetables, then the whole grains?
5 fruits and vegetables, and then your whole grains. So an example, if you want to snack on something like the Triscuits, this has 3 grams of dietary fiber. If you want to do something like your farro, this has 3 grams of dietary fiber. You can get it in a lot of things. Popcorn is a whole grain. It's a great game. You put it in the microwave for 2 minutes, you got a great whole grain snack. So fruits and vegetables and whole grains.
Jeanie, and last but not least, because you talked about oats, the difference, rolled oats, what does that mean?
That's old-fashioned rolled oats. It's just the way that they're processed. They're rolled through a machine. That's all that means.
Because the granola that I eat is a Trader Joe's granola, peanut butter granola, and it's got 10 grams of protein, it's got fiber, but it says rolled oats. Now, for my IBS, I can...
I'm camera. Okay. So that is the rolled oat. Okay. So look at that. Now look at the quick oat. You can see,
Now I can. Yep.
you
I
can
got
see
it.
that's a little bit more processed. Nothing's taken out. It's just cut a little bit more. It's like when you're cutting up your kids' food, they just cut it up a little bit more.
Jeannie, that's for me personally too, because on a FODMAP diet, you can have rolled oats, but you can't have, obviously, as I said, wheat, but it says rolled oats, you get the big green lights, go, go,
Yes.
go. So it's good.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
And
that's wonderful.
my favorite is the steel cut. In the wintertime, I go back because it's a little bit hardier. It's a little bit of a chewy texture. It takes longer to cook.
This is wonderful. I love having you on this gathering. Just go sit on the bench, play with your jars and your canisters and
Okay.
your everything else you have, all your
My props.
doohickeys and your props and tchotchkes. I love it. And we'll bring you right back for a Q&A.
Great. Okay.
Thank you. Our next guest, our survivor, is a warrioress. Her name is Terri Price, and Terri happened to go to the same college, Immaculata University, as Jeanie. Also was a registered dietitian, and she also, unlike Jeanie though, she also has been diagnosed with cancer, a 3-time ovarian cancer survivor. And I'm going to let Terri share her story with us. Terri, are you there?
I am.
There
Hi,
you
Pat.
are.
How are you?
I'm doing great. So you and Jeanie, were you in the same class?
We were. We had the same major. We probably sat right next to each other.
Did Jeanie sit?
Barely. We were very fastidious, both of us at the time. So we were
Well,
always moving and shaking and getting involved.
before I ask what you're doing now, why don't you take us on your journey? When were you diagnosed with cancer the first time?
Sure. My original diagnosis was March 16th, 2017. I was age 54.
And how were you diagnosed?
I was diagnosed in that I felt unusual symptoms with some bowel changes. And I was scheduled for my regularly annual physical exam with my primary care physician. And I presented those concerns to her at that time. And she said, why don't you see your gastroenterologist, my GI doctor that I had been seeing for over 11 years due to some colon cancer, family history. And I said, no problem, let's do it. So within a week, I had an appointment with my GI doctor, and she determined that my symptoms that could be potentially irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, and she prescribed me some over-the-counter IBS drugs. And she said, let's see how they work. In addition to that, she said, well, let's see if there's anything that could be, gravely serious, we'll do an ultrasound just in case. And I said, okay, I feel okay with that because I was just unsure about how things were going to progress. So about 7 days went by, I did the IBS drugs and nothing changed. And at that time, 7 to 10 days later, I had severe back pain that started, and it was for about 4 days. During that time, I had the ultrasound, and I never heard back from my GI doctor. And I just felt like I was left hanging, and I didn't like that. So the days progressed, and I got through this particular weekend with severe back pain. And I said one night, I said, you know what, if I can get through one more day, I'm going to figure this out, what's going to happen. So by still Monday, about 10 days after I had seen the GI doctor, had the ultrasound, tried the IBS drugs, and nothing had changed. So I took matters into my own hand, and I went to the institution that did the ultrasound. And you, as a patient, you can request your records. You can request your test results. And having had a background in nutrition and worked in the medical field with doctors on the floor, I thought I can handle this. So I requested my report, and I read the report, and it seemed pretty concerning. So having not heard from my own GI doctor, I reached out to a dear friend that had been dealing with some GI issues, and I knew she had
So wait,
had.
Terri, let's
Of
hold,
course.
take a pause right there. Only because this is important. You had 10 days without hearing from your physician after getting this ultrasound test. And not only do you have abdominal pain, but you have severe back pain.
Absolutely.
No,
I mean, I was
no,
this close to go to the ER,
and
and it
nothing.
was, and nothing, no response. And it was, of course, I was very ill and very overwhelmed with no, follow-up from the medical staff that I had seen. So at that time, in reviewing my own report, as you can as a patient, it seemed very grave. I reached out to an alternate GI doctor that I had never met, never spoke to, called their office randomly, and with my surprise, the office personnel was very grateful, and the doctor called me back in 30 minutes, which is highly unheard of. I was no one to him. All I said was my dear friend's name, that she was a patient, and I was in a grave situation. Happened to be a snowstorm of 2017, that March, and I was in my car waiting to go food shopping, and I waited and this gentleman called me back, the doctor, within 30 minutes, and he said, "Mrs. Price, how can I help you?" And he said, "Read me the impression of your report, and let's get to the bottom of this." I read the impression. I'm on my cell phone. I'm in my car. And he said, "You need a CAT scan. You need blood work. You need it ASAP." And he said, "With the pending snowstorm, let me see if my office personnel can get you to a CAT scan facility imaging center quickly." Again, waited in my car. They called me right back. I was to drive 30 minutes to the nearest imaging center. They accommodated me as a walk-in, no appointment. I had to take, drink the solution, barium for contrast that is needed for when you're looking for cancer. And they were able to accommodate me that evening. Later that week, I scheduled blood work at a local LabCorp. And I would say about 2 days later, the snowstorm had passed. I received a call from my primary care physician at that time, because by now, all the reports got back to her. And they said, "Come into my office right away. We have to talk to you." And that visit led to March 16th and diagnosis of ovarian cancer. And at that time, it was suggested that I see a gynecologic oncologist immediately. And we did some resourcing, my husband and I, and as per her suggestion, she knew of someone in the Abington Jefferson Hospital. And fortunately, back to the snowstorm again, the doctor that she recommended happened to be scheduled for a out-of-state conference that week. But because of the snow, he was in town. I was able to get an appointment within 24 hours, the very next day, that Thursday. And I had an appointment. He was able to review all my records, review all my scans. They acquired them all, electronically. We arrived there Thursday afternoon. He said, "You've got ovarian cancer, late stages. You need surgery ASAP. You're already on the books a week from today." My husband and I were, to say the least, speechless, overwhelmed, and dealing with the words that you have cancer changes you. And we got ourselves together and our journey began.
When you say it changes you, how?
Well, nobody likes to be told they have cancer. And, when your life up until that point is somewhat normal. You have the busyness of work, or if you're a caretaker, or your day-to-day shopping, or, however you keep busy. But it all stops right there, because you have to deal with your health 100% and take on that journey. And, I am a detail-oriented person. I focus on whatever card I'm dealt. And that day, my card was ovarian cancer. and I took on the journey, and with my eyes wide open, and it's scary. I mean, there was low points early on, but we just I was so grateful for my husband's support and my immediate family and friends, and we started the journey. And within that next week, I had surgery, and then I was recommended to have 18 weeks of chemotherapy every week as part of my frontline treatment, which was extremely debilitating. And I was only able to handle 15 weeks of the chemotherapy treatment due to my severe side effects.
What were the side effects?
My particular side effects at the time after 15 weeks was severe neuropathy. I, could barely move my hand with, like, say, moving a handle of your drawer handle in your kitchen or opening the refrigerator door. It was extremely painful. And I just, was fatigued and debilitated, lost a lot of weight. And I, even being a nutritionist and in the field, was very conscious of, my intake, but it still overwhelmed me.
So so when you stopped at 15 weeks, did you have a hiatus and have to resume the next 3 weeks, or what happened there?
Yes, I stopped at 15. They took a 2-week hiatus to allow my body to regenerate a little bit and to, get some, my white blood cells to resume and things like that. I went back 2 weeks later, and they did one last treatment. And they just felt that my body at that time had had enough. And that's how we ended. And that was August 2017.
So 2 questions there. One is, was that enough to halt the cancer or get rid of the cancer? And 2, what were the symptoms of the neuropathy after that 16th treatment?
Right. The neuropathy improved, thank goodness. I was very fortunate because I know some fellow survivors, neuropathy, if it is acquired in the early stages of your therapy, continues throughout, it never goes away. I was fortunate that it had reduced my sensitivity in my fingers, returned. I didn't have many other areas in my body that could be affected by neuropathy at that time. But what I want to indicate is because I had it in my early stages of frontline therapy, in the back of my mind, you can have it down the road. It's always one of those things. Once you have it, it can resume. But I was grateful after my initial frontline that the neuropathy improved. And I was very fortunate.
And so did they feel through the chemotherapy that they got most of your ovarian cancer?
Well, in addition to the frontline chemotherapy, I had a major debulking surgery, as I mentioned, 7 days after diagnosis. So in ovarian cancer, there's many ways to look at it. Sometimes you have, chemotherapy treatment for several weeks before the surgery, or you have major surgery before the chemotherapy treatment. In my particular case, because I was such late stages and the cancer had consumed a lot of the many parts of my body, my ovaries, my fallopian tubes, my appendix, there were some spots on my spleen, on my lungs, things like that. I had major surgery first, and then my chemotherapy started 4 weeks after my major surgery. They felt that they got a majority of the cancer with the debulking surgery. However, chemotherapy was prescribed because there's always those little cancers that they can't get. And that was evident in my case. There was still, evidence of cancer in my body.
So after this 16 weeks, your neuropathy disappeared?
Yes.
Returned to normal.
Yes.
Did you return to an active lifestyle? What was in your mind, in your body, in your spirit at this time? As a registered dietitian, how was your eating habits? Take us there.
Yeah, well, when I remember that summer, it was tough. And that's when I reached out to the Sandy Roman Ovarian Cancer Foundation because, I didn't know anybody with ovarian cancer. I didn't know how it affected you. I didn't know that it was an integral part of breast cancer and colon cancer, which I had a family history. So being diagnosed with that, it almost came full circle. And I had resourced them, and they were a wonderful source of information to help me understand that staying busy, active, eating better, and just clarifying what could help me resume to some normalcy in my life. Because after having 16 weeks of chemotherapy, I wasn't working outside the home at the time. You're not yourself. I didn't have the normal activity level that I had, 9 months prior. So it was a way of just, I tried to resource myself, reading books, online, contacting, I always asked for a nutritionist consult when I was under the care of my Abington Jefferson medical team at the time. And they gave me the resources I need to try and rally. And, for me personally, it was trying to stay busy. I'm good with my hands. I keep busy. I stay positive, keep interaction with my family, my friends. And that helped me transition back into some normalcy in my life.
So you're saying this Sandy Rollman Ovarian Cancer Foundation provided you with the insights and the support needed to get your mind engaged so that your body and spirit could resume back to who Terri Price originally was.
Absolutely, because in the early stages of this diagnosis, you're just so overwhelmed and you don't know. And I was fortunate to stumble on Sandy Rollman, and they educated me. I have support groups now. They provide fundraising to, we need more research because, as you know, and I don't know if our viewers know, there are no screening tests for ovarian cancer. And that is a deficit. The symptoms of ovarian cancer are very common with many postmenopausal women, or even very common in any age women. A bloating, a small amounts of food that you might eat, frequency to the bathroom. There's all these little symptoms that can cover a lot of things, including IBS, which is what originally was told to me, in the beginning. And I was like, oh, okay, you don't think anything about it. And you say, oh, right, they know what they're talking about. But you as a woman, you know what your body's dealing with. And when I look back to the days prior to my diagnosis, I felt that something wasn't quite right, but I just wasn't sure what it was. And knowing that they were talking about, ovarian cancer, and then it was like I wanted to share that with other people, that these common symptoms that I was feeling, truly I can share with others and say, listen, if you're not 100%, you're not sure what's going on, check it out with your doctor. Don't wait.
See, that's a beautiful signal. You are a great example of your body.
That's right.
Be intuitive.
Very intuitive and very sensitive to symptoms that I was feeling. And even though I was very proactive as a patient myself and proactive for my family and whatever, even these common symptoms got away from me because my cancer was late stage. And what we try and do now with Sandy Rollman and myself included, just talking to women in general, is try and get ahead of it. Only a very small percentage of women are diagnosed with early stage ovarian cancer. And late stage cancer is, it's a very high percentage. And that's just an unfortunate. And
now,
being
Terri, I have to bring this back up because you did so well in self-discovery and not settling for not hearing, that you took it upon yourself, that you knew something was wrong.
Absolutely.
And it was not right that you weren't being taken care of properly. Now you go through this entire journey with ovarian cancer, with metastasis to other parts of your body, and all this treatment, painful treatment, debilitating treatment, and then it comes back.
I know. It's discouraging. I will say that. And being late stage cancer, just to clarify, the recurrence rate is so much higher. So for me, Terri Price, being, diagnosed with, high grade serious ovarian cancer, stage 4B, my recurrence rates are high. And that is my life. Here we are 4.5 years later, and I've had six treatment courses in my life so far.
And how long is a treatment course?
Well, it depends, because let's go for treatment one. I had the traditional chemotherapy infused in my arm. That lasted 6 months. Then we did a break with the chemotherapy because my body had had enough. At the same time, I happened to be on a double-blind study, and I was taking an oral pill, a PARP inhibitor, working along with my chemotherapy, and they felt that was doing what it should do, like a post-treatment kind of thing, only to find out that also a blood level that is used to help determine ovarian cancer, which is called CA-125, and it's a blood drawn from your vein. And at the time of my diagnosis, mine was 2,400. A normal person's blood level in the CA-125 is 0 to 35. So when I completed my debulking surgery and the 16 weeks of chemotherapy, my CA-125 had come down dramatically. And all the medical team, including myself, when you're on a double-blind study, everyone thinks you're still on the drug. There's no way of knowing unless there's some reason to unblind you and figure out whether you're on the actual drug or the placebo. So going through the next 5 months, it was that September through February of the following year, which was 18, we all thought I was still on the drug. Well, my CA-125 started to elevate. My symptoms started to return of abdominal pain, just not feeling myself. And what we found out was by May of that following year, I was on the placebo. So therefore, my cancer had resumed, and that was classified as my first reoccurrence. Mm-hmm. So, it's overwhelming, and, we are our own advocate. So my husband and I did the research, and at the time, in ovarian cancer treatment, the most medical teams are a proponent of clinical trials. So I had just come off traditional chemotherapy, was on a clinical trial, but at the time I was still at Abington Jeff. There was nothing else for me for what I needed at that time for my particular type of cancer. And just to reiterate,
what did Terri Price do?
What we did was we did our own research, my husband and I, and we found that the University of Penn had a clinical trial that fit the needs of my particular cancer. And it's not like you can just call up and say, oh, I want to come down. You have to have, tested. They do a biopsy. Your records have to meet the needs of the trial. There's all these details that you have to meet the qualifications. You are then invited on the trial, and hopefully, all the criteria is met and you tolerate the trial. Fortunately, at that time, after my first reoccurrence, we found the clinical trial at Penn. I was able to meet the criteria, and that trial gave me 18 months of my active living. Now, I still had cancer, but I was able to, be more myself, go out, do things, provide joy to others, which is my biggest sidekick. And I was so fortunate to get 18 months. At that time, now we're up to February 2019, the cancer resumed again in full force. Pain, visuals on the CAT scans and imaging, and a decision had to be made. And once the cancer grows while you're on a clinical trial, you get kicked off. So the trial ended for me, and then you move on to what's next. And at that point, I went back to traditional chemotherapy. And this now we're in COVID. So, you know, we're in February 2020, and we're like, okay, now what? What do we do? And I started, fortunately, the University of Penn did not deny me any of my treatment, because I know several other ovarian cancer patients all throughout the country. You know, the centers were not able to see people due to COVID. I was very fortunate that my treatment continued, and I went for 9 months on traditional chemotherapy through IV. It was once a month, an infusion. I had to go by myself down to the hospital, and I was able, it kept it at bay, we'll say, for 9 months. And that leads us to the next time where...
Bring us into right now, Terri.
Bring us into right now. So right now, you know, things progressed again, and I had a third reoccurrence early this year. And now I'm currently on, I tried another trial after, they kind of alternate. They go to traditional, then to a trial, clinical trial. I did another clinical trial, which I did not tolerate. As I mentioned earlier in my talk, the neuropathy that I had in the beginning of my frontline treatment resumed. So this one trial that I started this past year did not go well. I was on it 6 weeks, had to be taken off immediately because of the extreme neuropathy. At that time, they went back to traditional chemotherapy, which is what I'm currently on presently. I take an oral chemotherapy pill, Cytoxan. In addition, that is a daily pill. And every 2 weeks, I get an infusion of an immunotherapy drug. And what the goal is that the Cytoxan chemotherapy drug, oral pill, kills the cancer, and the immunotherapy breaks down the cells that we're trying to like keep it so it doesn't grow in my body. So far, fingers crossed, we're keeping it together. My numbers.
Wait, stop for a second. Sure. How are you keeping it together?
Well, it's difficult. What I do to what I keep it together is my faith, my family, the Sandy Roman organization, my fellow survivors. I am so grateful to my husband and my children, and they are very supportive to me. My motto is stay busy, stay positive, and that's what gets me through, and I'm grateful for each new day. And
so,
that's what gets
Terri,
me
stay there because you truly are a warrior.
Thank you.
Dr. Jeanie Subach, if you'll come back.
Nope.
We only have 8 more minutes left, but I mean, Terri's story was so
amazing.
Oh my goodness, amazing is an understatement. It's like, wow. And she's still undergoing treatment as we speak. And so I get so much from your story, Terri, but first and foremost is take control of your life. Yeah. Like you felt that you weren't in the right hands, or someone did not care about you the same way you care about yourself. And you took it upon yourself to go and seek medical attention.
I did. And it doesn't stop. Like that one time that happened early on with my initial diagnosis, I experienced it again this year. I felt symptoms. The cancer had gone to my left carotid artery, unbeknownst to me. And what it mimicked was just typical swollen glands. And my current medical team kept saying, well, it might be a cold, it might be sore throat. I knew something wasn't right. A decision was made to get an ultrasound a CAT scan of the neck, which is not normal for ovarian cancer treatment or diagnosis of any further cancer. And sure enough, cancer growth was on my carotid artery, and I needed radiation treatment. And
so now you've undergone radiation as well.
I did. Because I pushed. I said things weren't right. And I was so glad, because had I not had those symptoms or being intuitive of those symptoms, hypersensitive to those symptoms, I don't know where the cancer would be now. Could be in my brain. You know, like it's all stemming from the ovarian cancer from 4.5 years ago.
So Terri and Dr. Jeanie Subach, both of you are registered dietitians, nutritionists. This information that you have relative to what we put in our body How is that helping Terri? How does that help other people with a diagnosis of cancer so that they can have the attitude Terri is taking right now? Because she sure as heck seems like she's got a lot of energy for undergoing however many years of all kinds of different kinds of cancer treatments.
Okay, Jeanie.
So I'm gonna say, Terri,
Absolutely.
can you share with our viewers what were some of the foods that you ate when you were going through radiation, when you were going through chemo, when it impacted your appetite?
Well, it's funny you should ask, and you talked about grains today, and coming off of those early stages of, you've mentioned this in your other segments as well. I get mouth sores in my mouth. So you have to watch, that you're not doing highly spicy, and you need soft foods. And, because I had a lot of cancer in my abdomen, my GI, I had a significant portion of my sigmoid colon removed. So I have to be mindful of the foods I put in my body. And when you shared today about the cream of wheat, that was one of my early foods that I chose to do because it was, low impact on the bowel. But as Jeanie shares with our viewers, and I know myself, protein, protein, protein. And in preparing for surgery, I only had a week prepare. However, having always been, a good focused eater and knowing what to eat, I beefed it up a little bit. Your peanut butter, your other sources, your salmon or things like that. And that helps your body to repair, because I became in a fatigued, low activity situation in recovery, and doing smoothies and overnight oats. Those are choices that I make and include in my daily diet to help me. The cutting up apple for fiber with the peanut butter, with the protein, like small feedings. I don't eat a lot at one sitting. I try and space it out. And of course, hydration.
So Terri, I think we should get together and we should have some cooking classes in my new lab to teach cancer patients how to make all the things that you experience. Let's get your experience into my lab and we can share it with.
I would love it, because as I mentioned before, with the Sandy Roman Foundation that I am a part of, we have a survivor call, and it's twice a month. And, we welcome new survivors every call. Anybody can join us or whatever. And recently we had a young lady come on, and she was not in the local area, Philadelphia area. And she said that, her nutritionist came, and it was just like she had pressed a play button on a recorder, and it wasn't very. So of course, you and I, Jeanie, from our history and our, teaching before, it's, we want that hands-on approach, that intimate approach with a nutritionist to say, what can we do? And you mentioned today also doing the food log, doing your food diary. That's how a nutritionist can help you examine what you're eating and how they can improve on it. And I felt so bad for her, because obviously her medical staff wasn't as advanced as our local area. And I think you would be a wonderful resource for our Sandy Roman Foundation, for our survivors, and just to get some great information out there for our cancer patients.
Yeah. So Dr. Jeanie Subach, I love that idea for you and Terri together in your lab at Westchester University.
Sounds awesome.
To create a meal plan or a menu item that you could share with our Healed Gathering. And what would be, I'm going to put you on the spot, Terri, what would be your first item that you would like to teach to cook?
Well, I just think, just spinning off of Jeanie's piece today with the oats, I am a big proponent of overnight oats, and including flaxseed, and different things like the agave honey and the berries and bananas. I just think it's fabulous. So I think that would be my first choice. And also another good protein source for snacks for the cancer patient that might not be hungry, or their appetite is a little depleted. And what kind of great snacks would be good for that patient to consume? And just to follow up too, is in treatment, I pack a lunch to this day. I did it before I was diagnosed with cancer. We do it today. what things can you pack that you're sitting in your treatment chair that are good instead of, like Cheez-Its or, peanut butter crackers. No offense to our hospital medical team in the infusion centers, but we need to get better snacks in the infusion center for the cancer patients.
Oh, I love this. I love
make a
this,
list.
Terri.
There you
I
go.
love you, Terri. I love you. You are such a
Thank you so much,
warrioress.
Pat.
No. You're giving us so much information, and now we know you're coming back.
Yeah.
Dr.
I'd be
Jeanie
happy to
Subach,
work with
as
Jeanie.
always. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. It would be a pleasure to work with you, Jeanie, in your new lab. And I know other cancer survivors, whether they be breast cancer, colon cancer, ovarian like myself, we could all benefit from the tools that you could show us in your new lab.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Terri. Thank you, Jeanie Subach, once again for joining us here at the Healed Gathering. We end each gathering with just a moment of gratitude. Thank you for the grace in helping us to welcome what is happening right now. We want to be able to deal with right now, and it requires grace for us to welcome. So thank you for the grace. Thank you, Terri Price. Thank you, Dr. Jeanie Subach. And we know you'll both be back. Bye, everyone.
Pat, thank you,
Peace.
Jeanie.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.